Hello everyone. So in this lecture we'll be discussing about federalism. So the topics that we are covering are what is federalism, key features of federalism, and how is federalism practiced. So the definition of federalism says it is a system of government in which power is divided between a central authority and various constituent units of the country. So constituent units here means states. Okay, so the power is shared between central government and state government. Now a federation has two levels of government, right? So as we have said, the central government and state government, so they are working at two different levels. Okay, so the government which is at the center level, so it is looking for the issues that are interested for, that are national interest issues and that covers wider public, like for example issues like foreign affairs, security, banking, currency, communication, like that. And if we talk about state government, so they try to look on the day-to-day administrating functions like police, trade, commerce, agriculture, irrigation, etc. Now we'll be discussing about unitary system versus federal system. So there are different countries who have adopted unitary system and countries who have adopted federal system. So the country who have adopted unitary system, so what is the structure of their country? So in unitary system, as the word suggests, unitary, so the word suggests being one. So there is only one level of government, that is central government. And even if they have their subordinates, which are the state governments or even the local governments, so they are totally and completely under the control of central government. They do not have their own authority, they do not have their powers. So whatever they are trying to be, they are completely controlled by central government, right? So they do not have their own area of jurisdiction, they do not have their own space of working, everything is on central government. So the example that we are taking here is Sri Lanka. So we know that the Sinhala community tried to impose their language and religion on non-Sinhala tribes and tried their best to make their country a unitary system. When we talk about federal system, so as we have in India, so there are multi-level system. Basically there is power sharing among different levels of government. So in India we have three-tier system, right? So countries have two-tier system, three-tier system. So like for say India, so there's power sharing is between central government, state government and local government. Yeah, so the central government cannot order state government to do something, right? So the state government has their own powers, they have their own constitutional powers, they have their own authority, and they are not answerable to central government on all the issues. So which means that they have their own area of jurisdiction and they are not answerable to central government all the time, right? So here we are discussing the example of Belgium. So as we know that in Belgium, the regional governments were given constitutional powers that were no longer dependent upon the central government. Moving forward to features of federalism. Now we'll be discussing some key features of federalism. So the first is there are two or more level of government, right? Two or three tier of government, like in India we have three-tier system, right? So there is the power sharing is between different levels of government. Second point says different tier of government govern the same citizens, but each tier has its own jurisdiction. Yeah, so the word here jurisdiction is very important to mention. So jurisdiction basically means an area of their workspace, right? So they have their own area to work, they have their own power, they have their own responsibilities in which they are not answerable to central government. So they have their own say, they have their own constitutional powers, and they have all the rights to make laws, rules and regulations on their area of jurisdiction, and central government has no right to intervene in their area of jurisdiction, right? Third point says the existence and authority of each tier government is constitutionally guaranteed, which says that the constitutional powers which state government has got, it is mentioned in our constitution, it is well laid in our constitution. So nobody can question the power which state government has been guaranteed. The fourth point says the fundamental provisions of the constitution cannot be unilaterally changed, but one level of government Such changes require the consent of both the levels of government. So they say that if any changes had to be made in the constitution, if any amendment has to be made in the constitution, then it is the combined responsibility of central and state government to bring any change in the constitution. Not any single government, not only central government can change any rule and regulation. It has to consult the state governments as well. Now, courts, fifth point says courts have the power to interpret the constitution and powers of different level of government. Now, court is basically the protector of our constitution and fundamental right. So if court feels that there is any hindrance, that if central government is interfering in the matters of state government, or if central government is interfering in the jurisdiction of state government, then the court has every right to intervene in the matter and to intervene in the matter. Now the sixth point says sources of revenue for each level of government are clearly specified to ensure its financial autonomy. Now there's clear-cut division of revenues to be given to each level of government. Now why this is so? Like, why we have given fixed amount of revenues? Why? Because it's very important to have financial autonomy. If they have good amount of resources to them, fixed resources, then they don't have to always beg to other people, beg to central government. The state governments had not always begged to central governments to ask for resources. They have fixed amount of financial autonomy which they has been given according to their demands and conditions and geographical conditions of the state. So they've already been assigned fixed amount of revenues so that they can run their state well. The seventh point says, so India adopted this federal system. So India is a successful federal system country. Now why we have adopted federalism? Basically to safeguard and promote the unity of country and to accommodate regional diversity, right? So as we know, India is a diverse country. So the people people of different religion, caste live here together. So it is very important to have a multi-level government system so that we can accommodate this diversity and maintain the unity of our country. Moving forward, now we will talk about how is federalism practiced. So this federalism model which India has adopted, many countries have adopted the same model. But what is the uniqueness of federalism structure which India adopted, right? So the federalism model which India adopted, it is unique in its kind. It's very democratic in nature and also growing through the time. So we'll see that how the federalism model which India adopted make it more unique and democratic. So the first key point is linguistic states. So as the word linguistic suggests, means language. So it was way back from since our independence, the people had this urge in their mind that they want to have a state where they can have their own language, where they want people who speak their language, the common language. They share same religion, same culture. So the language became a very important marker to demarcate the states. So India has a long history of where some states have vanished, many new states have been created, areas, boundaries and name of the states have been changed. So not only language was the basis of demarcating of states, but there were many other features as well. They were on the basis of culture, ethnicity, geography, etc. Now we'll be discussing about two examples. So the creation of new states on the basis of language. So the bilingual Bombay state, which is now the capital of Maharashtra. So it consisted two community, Gujarati and Marathi speaking people. But after a series of agitations, because the language was completely different, so it was carved out into two different states, Maharashtra and Gujarat, in 1960. So another example we have here is on the basis of regional culture. Okay, so they have their own different cultures. So that is why they decided to separate. How? Chhattisgarh carved out from Madhya Pradesh, Uttarakhand from Uttar Pradesh, and Jharkhand from Bihar in year 2000. Moving forward on language policy. Now our constitution did not give the status of national language to any one language, right? So Hindi was spoken by 40% of Indians. Therefore, many safeguards were provided to protect the other regional languages. Besides Hindi, there are 21 other languages recognized as scheduled language by the Constitution. States too have their official languages, and much of the work is done in their state languages. Even if the candidate wants to sit for an examination, the candidate is open to write the examination in his own language. He is not compulsated to write in Hindi or in English language. Though the case was not like that always. So the provision was made that according to the Constitution, the use of the English for official purpose was to be stopped in year 1965. But this provision has saw a great protest and violent eruptions in South India because the people were non-Hindi speakers. They were the non-Hindi states, so they felt that it will be wrong for them because Hindi is not their first language, not their mother tongue, not their national language. So how come that only 40% of Indians speak Hindi, and how can it become the national language? So the central government responded by agreeing to continue the use of language English along with Hindi for official purpose. Now, one thing here to be noted as, like we have seen in Sri Lanka, so the Sinhala community that were the major population of the country, they tried to impose their language and culture on non-Sinhala people, that were the Tamils, right? So but in the end, the country saw great recession, and there were a lot of fight went in the country. But India adopted a very different path. So the path that India adopted was flexible in nature, democratic. So we try to understand the problems of our country. We try to understand that yes, India is a diverse country, and if we want to live in unity, if we want to have unity in diversity, then we have to accommodate these problems togetherly. Then we have to accommodate, yes, India has different languages, cultures, so we have to give special status to the states as per requirement. Center-state relations. So India has a very long history of single party ruling for many decades. So it really didn't give any state parties to have a chance to rule or to show their talent in forefront. So even if any state party different from central party came into being, then central party tried its best level to compress the power of another party that is present in the state, by misusing the constitution, imposing president rule over the states without giving any valid reason of imposing president rule in that particular state. But over the years, particularly in 1990, we saw a different trend, which was the upcoming of regional parties. So the year 1990, so there was not any political party which was getting clear sweep majority in the elections. So the parties were making alliances with different political parties, let's say regional or state parties, to form a government. So this era also witnessed the emergence of coalition government. When any single party is not able to form a government, they join hands with other parties to form a government. So as the coalition government become very important, so the role of state government also improved. Now state government has a better say. The national governments were taking care the considerations, the desires of state government in their ruling. Also this was strengthened by the judgment of Supreme Court that said that it is very difficult for central government to dismiss state government without stating any valid or arbitrary reason, right? So thus federal power sharing is more effective today than it was in the early years after the constitution came into force. That's it from my side. Thank you.